I'm Brent Christopher, President of Children's Medical Center Foundation. Welcome to the Children's Health Virtual Clinician Spotlight Series. In today's conversation, we're going to look at our growth in North Texas and the critical expansion of Children's Health Plano, a hospital that's located near the corner of Preston Road and Legacy Drive that's part of the Children's Health System, in order to meet the needs of kids and families across this rapidly expanding region. Expert panelists today are going to give us an in-depth look at the upcoming plans and services that are going to be offered on that larger campus. But first, let's take a minute to sort of set the stage about what's going on at Children's Health. Like so many healthcare organizations over the past 15 months, Children's Health continues to be proud of the selfless service, the unwavering commitment of all our healthcare providers, and the courageous patients and their families whom we serve. Despite COVID-19, normal childhood illnesses and injuries certainly don't take a break. Kids are still dealing with heart defects and cancer and everything else from broken bones to appendicitis. We're also still on the front lines of virtual medicine, which has been crucial, of course, during the pandemic, and it's likely going to be a critical part of how we deliver care for years to come. It might surprise you to know that Children's Health has delivered more than 58,000 telehealth and telebehavioral health visits over the course of the past year. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, you should know that Children's Health has a really proud history here in North Texas. Our founder, Mae Smith, was a determined nurse who started a baby camp in the summer of 1913 to take care of this community's very sickest babies. And to do that, she borrowed 4/10 from the American Red Cross. Mae Smith knew in her heart that children needed a hospital where doctors and nurses were trained specifically to treat them and their unique needs, because kids are not just little adults. She's known for saying, someday this baby camp will be a great hospital. Watch us grow. Well, all those years ago, she didn't know how accurate her words would be. I'm pretty confident that in her wildest dreams, Nurse Mae Smith couldn't imagine that the baby camp, now nearly 110 years ago, would grow into 3 hospitals, treating more than 227,000 unique children last year. And that represented a little over 495,000 patient encounters. Of those nearly 500,000 patient encounters, nearly 113,000 of them happened at Children's Health Plano. Joining us later to discuss the importance of why Children's Health Plano is expanding its facilities and its critical programs and services on the Plano campus, we're honored to have with us today Vanessa Walls. Vanessa is our Executive Vice President for the Northern Market here at Children's Health. We also have with us 2 leading pediatric specialists, Dr. Kushnut Ahmad, who is Service Chief for Pediatric Emergency Medicine at Children's Plano, and Dr. Dan Gossett, Pediatric Neurologist and Medical Director of the Epilepsy Center at Children's. Now, if you've been here in North Texas a while, and if you used to drive up to the northern stretches of the Dallas-North Toll Road, you might remember that much of where Children's Health Plano stands was farmland not too long ago. Before we turn our program over to Vanessa and start looking at the future, let's also take a look at where Children's Health Plano is today. Vanessa Walls, the Executive Vice President for the Northern Market at Children's Health, is going to kick off our conversation today. Hey, Vanessa.
Hello.
Vanessa joined Children's Health in 2011 and serves as the hospital administrator for Children's Health Plano. She received her undergraduate degree in health administration from Auburn University and a Master of Science in Health Administration from the University of Alabama in Birmingham. Her impressive career has spanned more than 30 years as a health administration professional, including positions in both urban and rural hospitals. Now, at the end of our program today, there will be a Q&A session. So if you've got questions, please feel free to submit those via text at any point during the program today. You see that number on your screen, 214-725-7387. That is the number where you can text any question that you've got if there is something you would like to ask Vanessa or any of the other members of our panel. But for now, please join me in welcoming Vanessa as she gives us a look into the changing plans and growing services for Children's Health Plano and everything happening here in North Texas. Take it away, Vanessa.
Thank you, Brent. And good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to be with you this morning. As Brent said, I've been with Children's Health for a little over 10 years now, and I'm really honored to be a part of everything that's going on in the Northern Market, and particularly here at the Children's Medical Center Plano campus. You may have heard about a year ago, we announced some significant expansion for this campus. And today I'd like to work you through some of what that's going to look like because we've spent the last year planning. We've been fortunate during the year of COVID to have the opportunity to continue our work and planning this space that we're going to expand to serve the children of the Northern Market better and well into the future. So first, let me tell you a little bit about what this project's going to look like. This is our commitment to the future generations. We really want to expand our capabilities here in the Northern Market. As we've referenced before, we've been here about 12 years. We came here first. We were the first program dedicated to pediatrics in the Northern Market. And when we opened our campus, there was no one else here. Now there are a lot of kids up here. There are a lot of families moving to this community. And there are a lot of other pediatric programs here as well. We're really proud to have been the first and the one to continue to lead the way for pediatrics in the Northern Market. Our expansion will allow us to position ourselves to meet those growing needs of this community and to be able to bring programs closer to home. Today, we're 72 beds. The long-term investment of this expansion will take us to add 140 beds, taking us above 200 beds. This will put us on scale with many other children's hospitals across the country. We'll also be required then to expand our ancillary and support programs such as radiology, laboratory, and the like. We will also expand and relocate our emergency department. Our emergency department has seen volumes like we never expected, just to be honest. And those volumes are high enough today that we know we have to expand. And fortunately, with this larger project, we'll be able to expand the emergency room as well. And importantly, we want to add amenities to our hospital campus. We have some amenities today to be able to serve our families. But as we see the length of stay and the complexity of patients growing on our campus, we want to make sure that we're as supportive as possible of the entire family. And I'll talk about a few of those amenities to come. As we get started, let's think about the campus from the bird's eye view. This is an easy way to look at it if you're thinking the bird in the sky looking down at the corner of Preston and Hedgecox. The gray area is our existing hospital today. You can see the hospital itself, and then over to the left-hand side, existing Specialty Center 1. And then the purple sections are the areas that we're going to be adding. Starting from the bottom is the parking garage. That's pretty obvious. As we add this significant expansion, we know that we've got to provide adequate parking on campus. And so the parking garage will be an essential part of what we do and will likely be the first thing that we see on campus to be finished. There's a line there that you can see, which is a connector of a bridge connector over to the new tower with the H's on top of it. That will be the new patient tower. It will be 9 total stories, a garden level, and then 8 stories above. And adjacent to that pavilion. We won't refer to it as a new patient pavilion going forward, but that helps us as we're working through this process today of planning. That's the area where we'll include all of the radiology, the expanded emergency department, pharmacy, lab, and the like. We'll also make a few additions to our infrastructure with our electrical plant and so forth, but the areas we'll focus on today will be patient-facing. If you were to look at the hospital a little closer to the ground from that same vantage point at Hedgecox and Preston, this is what you would see. This may begin to get you a little more oriented to the space. The specialty center is still over to your right. You can see the purple dome, which is the lobby today, and the existing bed towers that come off of that. They're adjacent to it. But then emerging behind that, up to your upper left-hand screen, is the tower, as it will come together to really change the complexion of this campus. You'll be able to see this tower from the tollway, and there's some pretty unique and interesting features that we'll be bringing to it. You can also see the bridge there that connects over to the parking garage, and we'll get closer to each of those in just a second. If you were coming from the south on Preston Road, you can see up close now a little bit more the tower itself. It's going to be modern, yet integrating many of the features we have in our building today so that it doesn't give you kind of a piecemeal feel, but a contiguous feel. And it takes advantage of the beautiful space we have on the Plano campus. We're truly fortunate to have 155 acres on this campus to be able to expand our programs, but also then continue to benefit those programs and our patients by the beautiful space that we have with pasturing horses, a creek, and a lovely pasture land behind it. The campus itself will have unique features both for day and night. Here's an example of some of those unique features. You can see the lighted corridor there. That's some of our shared spaces, meeting rooms and waiting areas, elevator lobbies and things like that. The technology we're going to bring to this will allow us to light that space, and we could put on a customized light show there so that during the holidays we could have different color lights potentially to sound and music. We can also use it as a backdrop to show images. So we can do both audio and visual. For example, again, during the holidays, we could pop a Christmas message up there of Happy Holidays. We could always put the red balloon up there as well, celebrating our own heritage as part of the children's health system and being the longest term provider, both in the community and in North Texas, as Brent referenced with Nurse May Smith 100+ years ago. This is the parking garage, so we're getting a little bit closer to each of the individual pieces. The parking garage will allow us to really expand parking on the campus while not taking up excessive amounts of the actual land and footprint. We'll get about 500 parking spots in here, and then we'll be able to expand later to add some office space in there if we need to. Parking garages are relatively easy to build and give us some expansion there for the future that's somewhat soft. I'm going to call your attention to the area in the front there, that grassy lawn. This is going to be a great addition for us. This gives us what we're calling a pocket park and the ability to provide outside space for both our families and our employees. You can see the food truck rendering down there in this sketch. We're looking forward to having food trucks on campus again and being able to provide unique ways to interact on our campus for all those who visit here. When we think about the campus itself and the programs that we're going to be expanding, we're looking to expand the existing programs in a way that we really need a lot more bed space. As we thought that through, and we know that this is going to be a huge expansion of our campus and one that we know needs to carry us into the future, we wanted to have a theme that was consistent with our goals for expanding. Again, I mentioned before our beautiful space that we have here and our tie to nature. We know that the tie to nature makes the recovery process easier and smoother, and it makes the stress less for the family that's involved. So we looked to Texas to give us inspiration, and we took the habitats and regions of the state and came up with animal ambassadors for each one. So for example, you can see on level 8 will be the hill country. The nature there is the bluebonnet, and the ambassador for that floor will be the longhorn. So the theme we're trying to bring here is a theme that is whimsical for children, but not childish. We think it's important to make sure we're identifying with all of our patient population, and that population can vary from newborns to 18. So we want to make sure that we've got something that's timeless and will carry us long into the future. On the banner at the bottom, you can see each of those ambassadors displayed, and you can usually see, if you look hard enough, individual ambassadors as an adult and as a child. So in the beginning, in the middle there, you can see in green a large horse and then a foal beside that horse. The horses that pasture on our campus have been an inspiration for all of us. In all of our stakeholder conversations, the horses were referenced as something that each group wanted to make sure carried forward into the new design and as part of our inspiration for the program. You can look at the others and see the individuals that were chosen as ambassadors, and these were chosen by patients and their families, and by our own staff and physicians on those that they felt were the best representatives for those individual areas. So we'll see those carried throughout the building as we open it. Here are a few snapshots of what we expect the inpatient areas to look like. New care stations, they'll be updated, modernized, and supportive of the larger care teams that are present on campus. The patient rooms will also be updated. These will be new. They'll be similar to what we have in the existing space, which are already large patient rooms, but they will actually be larger than the existing ones today, with new amenities to hopefully provide greater comfort to families when they're staying with their children. Each floor will have a family lounge that will take advantage of the vistas that we can see out each of the floors out to the pasture with the horses and the creek. And then our waiting rooms will also take advantage of glass and the views that we have. In the emergency room, this will have a significant expansion. I mentioned before how busy our emergency room is. Based on our standards as we compare ourselves to other providers in the nation, our emergency room is quite busy for its size and certainly for the population that it serves. We're really pleased to be of service, but we want to make sure that we're able to be of service for the long time to come and with the growing population in the community. So we will almost double our size of our emergency department for exam rooms. We are planning to increase our trauma certification, going from a current level 4 to a level 2. That will allow us to take care of more complex patients. And we know to do all of that, we must expand that size and support the scale that's needed there. So this is a rendering of what the waiting room will look like, and then the rooms will be behind it. We'll include also some behavioral health rooms as well as additional trauma bays. I mentioned before early on we want to add on campus. Today we have amenities, as I mentioned. We have a coffee shop, we have a wonderful cafeteria, we have pet therapy on the campus, and are currently building out a dog park for them, which is a pretty cool addition to the campus. We're also redesigning our women's auxiliary playground to be an all abilities playground and really expanding it. It'll be more than double in size. So those things help us get to the future where we can look to our expansion and add even more. You can see the pocket park that I mentioned before, a different view on that. In the area that we're expanding for our core amenity space, we'll have a gourmet grab and go, which is separate from the cafeteria. But at the risk of calling out a name, I kind of refer to it as the Eatsies version of Children's, where we can get grab and go from there, and folks can have a different variety of choices of things to eat and coffees and things of that nature. We're going to call that area the wellspring. That reckons back to our idea around the animals that are in our habitat, and they all gather at the watering hole or the wellspring. That's the thing that brings the animals together, and that's what we think will bring all of our patients and families together as well. A key part of our amenities as we add them in this space will be the Ronald McDonald Family Room. There are some visuals down there of what we're anticipating with that, but that will be a space for families to find respite and get away, if you will, for a little personal and private time. There will be some sleeping rooms in there. There'll be some space to support them both with computers as well as TVs, some meals and opportunities for the community to also support these families in bringing food into the community, into the family room as well. And then finally, over on the far right-hand side on the bottom is the Family Resource Center. Our goal behind this is to expand our existing library. The library is a key part of what we do today. We'll relocate it and expand it to this zone also, and add more family support space in there for story time potentially, or other activities which we haven't really planned yet, but we want to make sure we have enough room to have space for those in the future. I've covered a lot about the Plano campus and what we're expanding there, but it wouldn't be complete if I didn't talk about the northern campus or the northern market as a whole and give you an idea of what we're doing in other areas. These are pictures of actual construction in progress in Prosper. About a year and a half ago, we bought 70+ acres in Prosper at the intersection of the Tollway and 380. It's on the far, it's on the northwest corner. And our goal there is to take that campus and continue to support the growth that's occurring even farther north than Plano. I think Brent mentioned if you were here in the last 15 years, there wasn't a lot farther north than Plano. There's a whole lot farther north now, and we want to be a part of that and serving those patients as well. Our goal behind this building is about a 30,000 square foot physician office building or medical office building. It'll be anchored on the first floor with an urgent care offering. And then we'll have physician office spaces available for rent, as well as we'll partner with some of our community and UT Southwestern providers to provide office space in there as well, bringing our services farther north and supporting that community. We also are planning some community outreach space in there where the community could interact with the building itself. Things such as community conference and meeting spaces that we'll make available to the community. So in summary, we've got a lot going on in the North Market. We're really pleased with our ability to serve this community. We see this as our obligation and our honor, and we're looking forward to being able to expand our programs here to do so. I look forward to answering your questions as we go into conversation about how you might want to be involved with that and how we can, ideas you have to serve this community and this population as well. But until then, I'll toss it back to Brent to introduce our other panelists.
Great. Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks for going over all those plans and for giving us a little bit of a sneak peek into what the Plano campus in particular and that corner of land up in Prosper may look like over the course of just the next few short years. I want to bring in some of our expert physicians now so that we can kind of round out the complement of all the experts we need for the rest of the conversation about everything happening in the Northern Market and to describe what's going to be expanding around the services and resources in addition to the physical campus that will be available for kids and families across the region. So join me now in welcoming Dr. Khushnud Ahmad and Dr. Dan Gossett, who are going to join us on the screen. Dr. Ahmad is our Service Chief of Emergency Medicine at Children's Health Plano. Dr. Ahmad has practiced at Children's Plano since 2011, and he earned his medical degree from Bahadur Zakaria University, completed his residency at Lincoln Medical and Mental Health Center in general pediatrics, and he completed his fellowship at Westchester County Medical Center in pediatric emergency medicine. Dr. Ahmad's areas of interest include toxicology, safety and injury prevention, and community outreach, all of which, of course, are incredibly relevant. Dr. Ahmad, thank you for being with us today. And alongside him, we have Dr. Dan Gossett, who is a pediatric neurologist and is the medical director of the Epilepsy Center at Children's Health Plano. Dr. Gossett earned his medical degree from UT Southwestern here in Dallas and completed his internship and residency at Children's Health Dallas. He did fellowships in pediatric epilepsy and child neurology at Children's Colorado and at UT Southwestern Medical Center. Dr. Gossett specializes in treating children with epilepsy, sleep disorders, tics and other movement disorders, ADHD, and other neurological disorders. So thanks to both of you for coming alongside Vanessa and me, and we look forward now to this conversation together. So I'm going to kind of just kick it off, and we'll move around the squares, let everyone chime in as you wish. We might begin, Vanessa, with you and giving just a little more context to what sometimes sounds sort of like inside baseball for us. We talk about you as the Executive Vice President for the Northern Market here at Children's Health. And the folks listening today might wonder what all exactly is included in the Northern Market. We know what that means when we say it at Children's, but describe the Northern Market for us.
Well, I appreciate you asking that because you're right. We do tend to use terms that might not make sense for everybody else. So quickly, geographically, the Northern Market for us is defined as that area north of 635. And our goal there is to realize that the geography alone in that area drives folks to pursue healthcare in certain ways. We recognize that there is a difference between the Northern Market and my companion market, if you will, is the Dallas market. And we have a desire and a strategy to continue to grow in the Northern Market and bring more programs and services closer to home. So that's my role, is to focus on that strategy and executing on that in the Northern Market.
And certainly that area that you described as the Northern Market is sort of ground zero for growth and expansion right now. You can't hardly turn around these days without meeting, it feels like a new family from California that is moving to Texas and moving specifically into that region that we call the Northern Market. But there's a lot of growth coming from all parts of the country, feeding right into our local environment here in North Texas. Let's talk a little bit more specifically then about some of the services that are going to be expanding. And Dr. Ahmad, I want to toss it to you first, because a lot of people who are watching today are going to be particularly interested in what's happening with our emergency room on the Plano campus and the emergency department in general. Vanessa mentioned earlier that we could be eventually shifting from a level 4 to a level 2 in the designation for our services there in the emergency department on the Plano campus. Give everybody some context to understand what does that mean?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for joining in. So as we all know, the emergency department for pretty much any hospital is really the front door to any hospital and institution. And whenever families have a need, any emergency comes along, that's the first place we go to. And we absolutely need to have the welcoming space and meet the need of the families in those emergency situations. I remember when I started in 2011 to now, the volume essentially to the emergency department is more than double. So basically the growth, as you mentioned, and there was a time, okay, you had time to go grab a bite. And right now you basically is like, wait, do I get any time to go have a drink or, a cup of coffee? So it has gotten really, really busy. And obviously that's where the need of expansion came along. And also, as we know, there's so much growth in the area. There's so many children, also young families moving in, and there's need for all these specialty services as well that comes along. And the major one being the trauma. And, we don't really have any pediatric trauma, dedicated trauma in the northern market. So basically going forward, along with the expansion of the emergency department to meet the needs of our community, we will also include a lot of the other services, mainly the trauma. We recently we have had the pleasure to have Dr. Guillory, who is the new pediatric trauma medical director, who will be leading this the trauma service plan. And we hope and plan that in this coming fall, we'll have the designation of level 2 trauma center. And the difference between now and then will be a lot of these community pediatric traumas, they have to travel further south to go to these trauma centers. We'll be able to accommodate them here and take care of them as well. And along with that, a lot of the other emergency services, as we are expanding, the volume has increased more than double, as I said, in the last 10 years. But the real estate or the space to accommodate that volume, obviously, we're falling short. So due to that, obviously, when you go to the emergency room with a sick or injured child, the last thing you want to do is sit in the waiting room for an hour, 2 hours to be seen.
Right.
You want to get them in as quickly as possible, see them as quickly as possible, and take care of them. And obviously, we, in order to do that, we need a bigger space. And we need to meet the demand and need of the community. And that's where the expansion of the emergency department will come in, and that will have really state-of-the-art services, including separate trauma rooms, separate critical care rooms. If there's a really critical child, that we can take care of that, expanded radiology services, expanded patient care rooms, and other patient care areas. So hopefully we'll be able to meet the demand in the northern market. And our goal is, right now as it stands, as soon as a patient is in the room, a patient is seen in less than 10 minutes by a provider. So for this year so far, it's been 6 minutes. So our challenge is generally if we have no space to see anybody in the back, and that's where families end up having to wait in the waiting room. Hopefully with the expansion, that will be eliminated, and we'll be able to serve our community as best as we can.
So to summarize that, then the level 2 designation will be a higher level designation and sophistication to be able to take care of more seriously injured kids, and in an expanded space that can take care of a larger volume, keeping wait times as low as possible, to be able to meet the needs of those kids as they're coming in. Fair summary?
Absolutely, yes, sir. So, right now we are level 4 trauma center. It's more like a screening for trauma. And if we can screen and there's no significant systemic injuries, we can take care of them. But as soon as we find out there's a systemic injury, then we have to transfer to Dallas for the trauma service. We don't have the trauma in-house service yet. With the level 2, what will happen, we'll take care of the majority of the trauma patients. With the exception kind of very few critically where you need higher specialty service. Only those patients will end up being transferred to Dallas, but we should be able to take care of the majority of them in Plano campus.
And keeping them close to home, closer for their families and their friends and the network of support around them, all those things. Makes a lot of sense. And Dr. Gossett, I want to add you in here to complement this discussion and round out some of the other case for why we are expanding other services on campus. I know the emergency department is a big area of focus, but it's not the only area of focus. So talk to us a little bit more about some of the other services that are going to be growing and expanding on the Children's Health Plano campus.
Absolutely, Brent. So there's quite a lot of subspecialties that are available on campus already. And I'm, of course, representing the epilepsy and more broadly the neurosciences division. So we got approved as a level 3 epilepsy center back in 2019. And our goal is to continue advancing that to eventually become a level 4. Now, unlike the emergency department, we actually want to go up.
Sometimes the numbers are better when they get lower, and the numbers for other things are better when they get higher. So it's a little tricky to juggle that. You're saying this is the inverse of the designation as a trauma.
It is. Yes, sir. No, we want to provide level 4 epilepsy care, which actually includes invasive EEG monitoring and more comprehensive services, including epilepsy surgery, and bringing a neurosurgeon up to the northern campus at some point. We've got some thoughts on when we'd like to do that. But right now we've got a 4-bed hardwired epilepsy monitoring unit, where our goal is to expand that to 12 beds within the next few years, depending on how full we can keep those beds. But we've already done some pretty great things. We are now offering a type of therapy for one of our very rare patients with a particular metabolic syndrome. And Children's Plano is the first hospital in all of North Texas to offer that therapy, even before either Cook's or Children's Dallas was able to offer that therapy. So we're moving quickly.
That's great. So Vanessa, give us a little more general context then behind all this. Well, first of all, explain the reason why it's significant to have this expansion in Plano. What's the difference between that versus just bringing more patients and families down to Children's Health Dallas and the campus that is in Dallas? The benefits of having those kids closer to home that undergirds the rationale for this expansion. And give us a little more context again for understanding why now's the moment. What's so special about today?
So the basic point around our need for expansion here is that we know that children heal better, respond to treatment and therapies better when their life is less disrupted. And we also know that a child being treated does not mean it's just the child, it's the entire family. When a family gets disrupted in that way because of travel distance, then it's much more difficult for the rest of the family to support the patient, if you will, and also it puts that family dynamic in a different situation, which is not ideal for more than just the patient. Our goal is to be able to eliminate that adversity, if you will, and bring the services and programs closer to home so that they can heal and receive treatment closer to home. Many of our patients today, and even more in the future, will receive continuing care and treatment with greater complexity on the Plano campus frequently. So, for example, we've seen significant growth in our oncology program over the last year, particularly under the leadership of Dr. Tamara Sloan. She has grown programs on campus significantly, and many of those patients in the oncology realm will receive chemotherapy, and they will be inpatient and outpatient, and they will be a part of that care regimen for a long time. Even just the distance of between Plano and Dallas is a significant distance when you think about what has to happen to get that child ready for care and the impact to the larger family unit. To package up a child, if you will, to go from Frisco to Dallas frequently, several times, and if that child is already medically fragile, it's just a lot to ask of that family. So our goal is to be able to expand services such as oncology, cardiology, the neurosciences and emergency medicine that Dr. Ahmad and Dr. Gossett have spoken of, and many others on campus to allow our families to not have that extra travel time as part of their care plans going forward. And why is now the time? The time is right for us now in many ways, not the least of which is, as we have been here now for 12 years, we have grown so rapidly. Dr. Ahmad mentioned the growth in the emergency department. We've seen similar growth across all of our specialties on the inpatient side, that we're getting quite full. And it's a good problem to have in many ways, but at the same time, our commitment to our mission is to make life better for children. And to be able to do that, we've got to have the ability to do so, and that means we need additional capacity. We need that capacity in both the physical state for the facilities that support our programs, but then in the programs themselves and being present on campus. And now's the time to bring them together, expanding programs today to be ready for the expanded to us in about 4 years.
So I heard you say earlier that with the expansion that is planned for Children's Health Plano really, compared to other children's hospitals around the country, it would stand on its own as a very significant institution, even as it's a part of a larger system at Children's Health that includes other resources around the community. This is a big boost for Children's Health Plano in its own right. Is this the biggest, or are you blowing this out to the maximum footprint? Is this one more little step in a long process? Kind of where is this in the evolution of that campus?
Sure. So it is a substantial step forward. We're going to almost triple our bed capacity, which is significant. And as you said, it puts us on scale with other hospitals around the country, such as Chicago, Lurie Children's, and Seattle Children's, similar bed sizes, those hospitals that you might often hear about in that same way. We are going to build more than we need today. I'll just be straight about that, because growing into that amount of capacity will take us some time. We feel confident, and we have a plan that will allow us to do that over the next 10 to 15 years. We have to build for the next 10 to 15 years. My goal is to not be under construction for the next 10 to 15 years. It's to build this now, take that big investment today, and have it ready as we need it to be able to fill in as the volumes continue to grow and the programs grow. We talked about the population growth that's occurring in this community, and we know that we've got to be ready to support that as it continues as well, and having capacity at our fingertips will be important.
So one of the things that I think is often top of mind for parents and can be confusing is how to access services at a hospital like Children's Health Plano. Oftentimes, many of us don't really think about accessing those services until there's an urgent need for us to do that, right? And in the heat of the moment, it becomes very confusing, and we're not sure exactly how best to draw on the right resources to figure out what choices to make, where to go, what to do. I'd love to hear perspectives from all three of you, and maybe beginning with Dr. Ahmad, if a parent were thinking about where to go to an emergency room. How should parents and families be thinking about that decision-making process of where do I need to take my child when they need care, and why would I pick Children's Health Plano?
Absolutely. So basically, as you mentioned in your initial presentation, children are not small adults. So we know that from a day-to-day practice, and there's a reason now in the emergency department and every other specialty that we specialize in children's emergency services. There's a board certification process, so there's a very lengthy training. So when the child does have a medical emergency and need, if that way there's a life-threatening emergency, yes, closest hospital, that's basically where we need to go. But generally for the families, when we, especially newer families, move into the area, it's basically advisable to kind of map out where is a children's hospital. In our situation, obviously, Children's Medical Center Plano is really strategically located where there's so much growth. And when there's a need or medical emergency, the preferred location to go to, it should be the children's emergency. And we know that basically when even families end up going to a regular hospital, we essentially after initial evaluation immediately get a phone call to basically our campus, hey, we have this patient, we would like to transfer you there. So it basically adds another step that going to a community hospital and then having to be transferred over to us. If the time allows, it's better to basically come straight there. And as I say, our commitment is to see everybody as quickly as possible. And also I might add as well, our emergency department is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with double board certified pediatrics and pediatric emergency medicine board certified physicians. So the highest or the best skill you can have in our field in order to provide the best care possible.
Great, that is helpful. And the decision that parents make in the middle of a really urgent crisis, an urgent need, actually can be a little simpler than the decisions they may have to make for the things that aren't so acute and urgent, where sometimes it seems, I think, a lot more complex to sort through the range of options. So Dr. Gossett, again, speak to this question. Why and how would a patient family choose to access Children's Health Plano? What goes into that sort of decision-making process, and how does that work?
Yeah, so so many of our patients, or I should say most of our patients, come from one of two directions. So they're either referred from Dr. Ahmad or one of his emergency medicine staff if they come through the emergency room, or they're referred by one of the pediatricians, either through Children's Health or through the community. And a lot of that is just very personalized attention and relationships that we have with the community. And that's one actually big advantage of being a community hospital like we are, is we do go out, we meet the physicians. Most of the emergency docs under Dr. Ahmad's leadership know us all by name. Many of the community pediatricians know us by name, and we've built those relationships with them, and they know that in our hands they're going to get very good care, and they're going to get care close to home. In many cases, especially with kiddos with complex problems that are not we can't figure out immediately with the initial tests, that does require frequent visits. That could be for imaging, that could be for EEGs, that could be for labs, so on and so forth. So it's really helpful to the families to be able to get that closer to home within their community and still get excellent high quality care.
Great. Vanessa, what would you add to those responses?
Just a few comments. I think one of the things I'm most proud of on the Plano campus is our ability to have a collaborative environment with our community physicians, as Dr. Gossett referenced, as well as the expertise that and the continuum, if you will, with our UT Southwestern academic partners. We're really fortunate to have both on campus, and that provides additional opportunities for access as well, depending on the specialty and the need.
Great, and certainly we all know any reason that we can stay closer to home, and particularly not have to make the long trek all the way down into Dallas or other parts of the region, we're all better off for a whole host of reasons. And it sounds like a lot of what is happening on the Plano campus is driven by this commitment and the need to be able to take care of more kids and sicker kids and more seriously injured kids at Children's Health Plano and keeping them closer to home and to their network of support. Which makes a lot of sense. I know there's more that goes on, though, on the Plano campus, in addition to some of the clinical services that we've talked about and the emergency department. Vanessa, talk a little bit, too, about, like, is there research happening on that campus? What are some of the other things occurring at Children's Health Plano, and how will those things be affected?
Sure. A lot of our things, such as research and learning opportunities, are focused primarily in Dallas, but we do have participation from the Plano campus. We have learners, if you will, on our campus in lots of different ways. Medical students can come and shadow, nursing students, other ancillary support students can be on campus to shadow and observe what it means to be in this environment, which is a good bit different than the environment downtown. And similarly, from a research perspective, many of our research studies are anchored in Dallas, but we do have the opportunity to have patients from the northern market and on the Plano campus involved in some of those research studies as well. It's important to be able to drive the future of pediatric medicine from all perspectives. And at Children's Health, that's really important to us as an organization. So we try to bring those resources both to the northern market as well as being focused in Dallas.
Training caregivers, pushing out the boundaries of what we know about how to diagnose and treat pediatric illnesses and injuries, and then providing the clinical care in the best possible setting, all wraps up in a pretty compelling package for the whole thing. Dr. Gossett, tell us then, what's that conversation like when you're speaking with another community physician, say who practices in Frisco? I'll just pick one of the communities out of a hat. You're talking with them about why they would choose to refer a patient to Children's Health Plano compared to the other options that they might think they have. What's the conversation that you have with them?
So I frequently get calls. Many of the community pediatricians have my personal cell phone number. And I got a call even yesterday from a community pediatrician. And it's because they know us and they know that we're going to take good care of their kids.
That's right.
Now, again, there's a couple different routes, and they can use the typical referral service, and we get them in as quick as convenient. But they all know that if they're worried, then we're worried. So if we need someone, if they say, hey, I need this kid seen today, then we can get them in many cases, either same day or next day, and we'll find a way to take care of those kids. If they need to go through the emergency department, then that's fine as well. But in neurology, much of what we do is on an outpatient basis. And we use the emergency department or the epilepsy monitoring unit when that is necessary. So they know us, and they give us a call, and we take good care of take good care of the issues that come up as they come up.
Vanessa, as you were describing all the plans, obviously most of us tend to focus on the delivery of care and the needs of patients and families as they're coming to the campus around that medical need. But you also talked a little about amenities, and people got a little bit of a taste as you described the pocket park and the playground a little bit. But we all know that you can go to a place because it delivers extraordinary clinical care, but that doesn't mean you're going to have a really smooth and supportive experience. And the amenities you're talking about are what help deliver that great experience for the families and patients while they're on the campus. Talk a little bit more about what that term amenities really means and how that encompasses everything that's going to be happening. You and I have had a chance, I know, to talk some about the dog park, and wow, I'm not sure there are any more popular creatures on the Children's Health campus in Plano than the dogs. And our pet therapy program is always a hit with patients and families and with staff alike. So they will have new resources, but kids and families are going to have these new resources too. Talk a little bit more about some of the programming that is planned and some of the unique aspects that kids and families will experience in the hospital.
I think the easiest way to group those things so that we call amenities are an interactive and more respite-based, if you will. From an interactive standpoint, we try to provide both positive distraction as well as just general positive engagement. Our pet therapy program is a significant part of that. We have two facility dogs in Patton and Flora. They are golden retrievers, and they are here with handlers who are employed at Children's Health Plano, and they come on a daily basis. And those two dogs are part of our staff. They help in the therapeutic process. When a child is in a stressful situation, when you bring the dogs in, it changes the entire mood and changes the mood for the parents too. We're really fortunate to be able to have those dogs. They are supported by grants and funds from the foundation. We're very thankful for that. And those dogs then come to us after significant training, and they spend a significant part of their lives here in treatment and therapy to our patients as well.
Let me interrupt you for 2 seconds and just clarify. They are supported by funds that eventually flow from the foundation, but we don't make up that money from a little printing press in the back room. Those are gifts from the community, of course, that come in. And so the pet therapy program is supported by some wonderful people in the local community who care a lot about that and have made some generous gifts to support that program. And we're always glad to facilitate that.
And similar donors, maybe the same donors, have underwritten our dog park in support of those key caregivers and our dogs that are, again, our facility dogs. Plus, we have volunteer dogs that come to campus with volunteers who are part of our volunteer group as well, and their dogs receive specialized training to be certified therapy dogs to be able to be on campus and interact with our patients and families. So providing that area for them will be nice. It'll be a nice area for those folks to get a little escape and probably a little fun for our families to be able to see them as well. But other amenities that we're talking about are ways to provide respite, to provide those things that make it a little easier to be away from your own home and potentially to be a little away from the care environment. It's a very stressful time when your child is sick. I have a daughter. When she has had interactions with the healthcare systems in the past, it's stressful. That's my life right there. That's my heart on that bed. And to be able to find ways to support our families, to be able to take care of their children as they would like, but also to be able to take care of themselves. So the Ronald McDonald Family Room is a part of that. Being able to have to have good food, to be able to have access to phone chargers and computers and things that you have at your house readily available. But if you ran out of your house and ended up in Dr. Ahmad's emergency room, you may not have those things. And we want to be able to support our families with providing those kinds of environments. And we want to be able to support our employees in the same way, because we know that when our employees are engaged and they can come to work with their full minds, bodies, and souls, that they then can deliver the health care that we want them to for the families and patients that we serve. So some of these spaces are designed to support them as well.
So our guests today have been seeing the text number pop up on the screen where you can send in questions for the panelists, and we are beginning to get some of those questions at 214-725-7387. One of the questions that has come in says, how does Children's Health Plano plan to deal with the staffing demands? Are you going to be increasing your staff size in conjunction with the expanded campus and these expanded programs? What does this mean for the number of people that are going to be working at Children's Health Plano?
So I'll kick that off and toss it to Dr. Ahmad in a second, because I think there's a significant piece for our emergency department as well. But in general terms, for the hospital and for the campus, we are in the process of trying to develop those plans today. We expect that we will be growing programs incrementally between now and the time the actual expansion opens. There will be certain things that we've got to grow to be ready for the opening. We can't just do it on day one. But as we continue to see volumes and programs grow on campus, we will incrementally add staff and providers to that. But we know then as we expand and we get into these more subspecialized units in the expansion, we also have to look to provide specialized staff. So as we look to take units and focus on neurosciences with Dr. Gossett, we got to make sure we've got the programs and plans to support him. I mentioned oncology and cardiology. We've got to have the staff to support those programs in that way, and we'll be trying to plan for that and working toward that over the next couple of years with the goal of adding staff for day one and then incrementally thereafter as well. But as I think the emergency room is probably a great example as we look there, providing so much greater facility space, just geography. We'll be looking to add staff and providers, and I know Dr. Ahmad's been thinking about that as well.
Yes, thank you very much. So basically, from the physician standpoint, I can tell you the Children's Medical Center is a very attractive place for providers to come and work, be part of the community, and that's what the community hospital is about. So people love to come and know the market, be part of the community, and work at Children's Medical Center. So we, in fact, already before the winter arrives, and as we know, the winter volumes basically become a lot higher in the emergency department with all the viral illnesses, asthma, pneumonia, and so on and so forth. We just added 2 more pediatric emergency fellowship trained physicians starting in July, just to meet that demand come winter. We are very well positioned to add more staff to our group as the need arrives going forward once we have the expansion.
Understood. So Vanessa, you had one slide earlier that also talked a little bit about what is happening in Prosper, and that touches on a whole host of things actually for Children's Health Plano. We tend to think of that big hospital campus at Hedgecoats and Preston, but we know that there are a lot of important relationships with many of the local schools. There is this new facility that is under construction there in Prosper. Tell us a little bit more about the broader relationships across the northern market and what exactly is happening in Prosper. I know there have been a lot of questions about that as stories have appeared in the newspaper. You can probably dispel a few myths and tell us a little bit more about exactly what to expect.
Sure. The patients that we share with our school districts are important. We call them patients, they call them students, and it's the same people. And we know that our ability to support those patients and our community really comes foundationally with our schools. So we have pursued relationships with our schools and with the ISDs in the northern market and across the Metroplex. So it's not unique to the northern market, but that's the one I know best. We have relationships with hundreds of schools in the form of telemedicine and behavioral health. It allows us to take programs into those schools, partner with the school nurses to be able to help them take care of kids at their campus and keep those kids in school. Sometimes bringing a child to a doctor's office can be disruptive, again, to the family and to a parent having to come out of work, disruptive to the child. If we can help the child stay in school, that's beneficial for the family and for the patient. But when we think about telebehavioral health, that's even a further enhancement, if you will, because those resources are so limited in our community. And as we are able to support our school counselors in their schools by providing resources to them and telebehavioral health to them, that has been a significant win for us over the last couple of years, and one of technology we're continuing to advance across our community. We've seen this in a couple of different ways. We've done this, again, like I mentioned, with several school districts and schools in those districts. But specifically, about 2 years ago, we announced our partnership as the pediatric health provider for Prosper ISD. And that gives us a way, it's the first one we've really partnered with in that full-scale fashion, that gives us a way to understand how we can begin to advance pediatric care and health in general through that partnership with schools. We help them with things, there are obvious things that you might see from our sports medicine programs on the sidelines, but then there's also things that might not be as clear, where we're helping them advance curriculum development. We bring our specialists to the table with both Dr. Ahmad, Dr. Gossett, and others, where they have expertise that we can leverage to bring to those school systems in ways that allow them to see the contributions that these individual types of specialties can bring. On the Prosper campus that I mentioned specifically, we will start with a medical office building, and we'll grow as the community tells us what they need. The Prosper community is expanding exponentially, as I'm sure we've talked about with Collin County as a whole. Prosper has both Collin County and Denton County. I happen to live there. I moved there about a year ago to be part of that growth, and it's an area that is growing in a way that we want to make sure we're able to support, but also know what their needs are to make sure that we are specific in our growth, as opposed to more of a shotgun approach, if you will.
Great. Well, I think as everyone can tell from the conversation today, dirt is about to be flying on the Children's Health Plano campus. A lot of activity taking place there and Prosper through these relationships all over the community. We hope that everyone is going to continue to watch the expanded hospital and expanded services come to life step by step over these next few years. It has been great to have all of you with us today. Dr. Ahmad, Dr. Gossett, Vanessa, thank you all for making time to be a part of this and sort of taking us behind the curtain to see what's really happening across the northern market. Folks in the community often want to know, how can they help? How can they be a part of the things that are happening? And we certainly need community leaders and members to stand alongside us. Children's Health is a not-for-profit healthcare system. We're not part of a state system or a for-profit healthcare system. We are a community resource, and it is important to have the community alongside us, linking arm in arm with us to bring to life the way that this mission of making life better for children affects individual patients and families all across this region. So you can always learn more about what's going on at Children's Health and how you can be a part of it by going online to give.childrens.com. We need you to be an advocate in the community. We need you to tell your friends and neighbors about what you've heard in the conversation today. We'd love to have you encouraging people to take advantage of the services and resources available at Children's Health Plano. And if you'd like to financially invest with your charitable dollars, invest your philanthropy, there's a way for you to do that too, because we count on the community standing with us in all those ways to enable Children's Health to be successful in that mission. Thanks to everyone for making time to be with us, and we look forward to our next opportunity to be together.